Welcome to Uncle's channel, thanks for watching today, and let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy Color game. Today focus on a game called Merlin for the Game Boy Color. Now this is your typical early 2000s action-adventure platforming game. Very colorful, has its own little charm behind it. You get to play as Merlin as you're fighting against this evil dragon who has possessed pretty much the entire world here. And you have to go through all these different realms, whether it's like the air realm, the fire realm, the earth realm, all these different realms to try to fight off this dragon and restore humanity and the world back to normal. But even though this game is going to have a lot of charm behind it, a lot of good graphics behind it, how does the gameplay hold up in comparison to some of the all-time great Game Boy platformers? So let's go ahead and dive into Merlin on the Game Boy Color. Now I always like to start the videos up by looking at the box art for the game first, and the box art for Merlin is pretty darn classic. You got Merlin right there smack dab in the center, floating on a little cloud, and you are going to float on that cloud a lot during the game. You got the purple dragon sort of circling around you, and the dragon looks somewhat friendly on the cover, but this is your main enemy throughout the game, and he looks way more ferocious in the actual game itself. And of course you have a little castle in the background, and you're going to journey through a lot of castles in this game. And so honestly I think the cover is pretty charming. It's got Merlin, you know, looking like he does inside the game, which is always a plus for to match up the actual characters here. And I don't know, the cover, I think it summarized the game pretty darn well. Now when you start the game up here, you got a very fairy tale like intro. I love the little music behind it, the little animations behind it. It's a wonderful, beautiful little intro, and it tells the story of how all the creatures or all these spirits lived in complete harmony throughout the entire land until after 1,000 years the dragon awakened and he came through and he enslaved all of the creatures throughout all the different realms, and it's all up to Merlin to come through and rescue them all from the dragon's claws or the dragon's grip here. And I just love the intro, and they're going to keep the same little cutscene format, the fairy tale music after every world that you beat, and I love the continuity as it goes on. But man, there's just something charming about the intro here, and I like the way Merlin is animated, and he's going to be animated just like that throughout the rest of the game. But it's weird though, when you get to the actual title screen, Merlin is animated completely different. Merlin is animated like a claymation almost type looking figure, and I'm actually glad they went with the art style from the intro scene instead of the title screen, just because I don't know, I like traditional animation a little bit better. Now when you start the actual game up here, you're going to go through 5 different realms trying to free them from the dragon. And the first realm you're going to go through is the Earth realm, and it's going to focus more on like the grasslands or like the gnomes throughout the game. And so you go into the very first level here, and it's a pretty good looking game as far as like the colors go. It sort of pops from the background a little bit. Good animations for Merlin himself, the enemies that you're going to come across. It reminds me a little bit, especially in this first level here, of like the Smurfs cartoon from the 80s. And it's probably due to the fact that there's all these gnomes in the area. It's sort of a forested area. I mean, it has some similarities. That's all you can say. Now, as you're journeying through it, like I said, you're fighting off the evil gnomes. You have these little evil rocks that you're fighting against as well. And there's all kind of like little power-ups that you can get throughout the level, which allow Merlin to have like different spells that he shoots out. And you can't swap between the powers. It's simply whichever one you pick up is your new power. Sort of like it was in the original Contra game. And there's a lot of different ones that you're going to pick up. However, when I finally come across the spread shot, that's the one I'm going to stick with through most of the game. So I'm not going to go through like all the different power-ups, but there's like one that's like a homing missile, one's a little bit faster. But I mean, come on, when you get spread, you can't help but keep spread when you get it. And you keep this, even if you have like died and have to continue, you will always keep the weapon that you currently have. You will never lose that weapon, which is actually really nice, because like the worst part of a Contra game is when you lose your weapon by getting hit once. And so I don't know, I do like that aspect of it. Now you're going to notice at the bottom of the screen there's a little bar down there. It's going to show like little dots lead up to a shield, a star, and a question mark. And every time you kill an enemy without getting hit, that bar is going to continue to go from left to right. And when it hits the shield, that means you get like an extra little defense, and so you can actually get hit twice before you end up passing away. If you get to the star, you have like a double shot to some degree that shoots out. If you get all the way to the question mark without getting hit, Merlin gets almost like an extra speed boost on every shot that he shoots out. And so you're doing double shots very fast with extra defense. You can get all the way to the question mark without getting hit. But if you do get hit, you just simply go back down to the beginning and you start all over again. And if you get hit again before you get to the shield, then you pass away and you lose a life. But the game is very, very forgiving. Like if you have a continuation, like I said, you keep your weapon, you keep your spot in the game, you might as well just simply have infinite lives. The level 1-1 here is very simple. Take out the enemies if you want to, and you go all the way from left to right, because of the far right side of the screen or the right side of the level, you finish level 1. Now level 1-2 is actually a little bit more of a difficult jump than some of the other levels inside the game, and it's only because there's a lot of spots in level 1-2 where you're going through this cave here, and when you drop down, you can't really like see which enemies you're dropping down on, so it's sort of a leap of faith. And when you drop down there, the enemies pretty much overload you or overwhelm you too fast, you get killed. There's also a spot like when you jump down, you don't know there's enemies hiding behind the shrubs, and you simply try to walk behind the shrub. You get hit, you get killed that way. And so there's just sort of almost an unfairness to this level, as far as like, unless you've done the level before, you're not going to know where these enemies are hiding. And you're going to have to play through the level at least probably 2 or 3 times just to get to the end because of all the hiding spots. And this is something that the game is going to continue throughout, but it's most noticeable more than any other level in 1-2. Also in 1-2, you're going to come across the little mini boss here. It's like a little golem. And really simple. You just simply shoot his head. And after like 10 shots, the golem's going to pass away here. And you continue on your way. But I go ahead and mention the golem because the golem's going to appear throughout like almost every single level. You can be different like iterations of him as far as like different color variations to match up more with the level that you're going through. Now level 1-3 is going to bring Merlin out on his little cloud here, which is on the cover of the game. And it's basically a side-scrolling shooting level where you're basically going from left to right and you try to avoid touching the ceiling or the ground. If you touch that, you pass away. You take out all the little enemies throughout, and it's the exact same enemies you fought thus far in the game as well. And it's not too difficult of a level, but I can't say they're like my favorite level. They feel sort of boring. There's no exploration, and I don't know, they're just simply not my personal favorite. But when you finish 1-3 off, 1-4 is going to continue being on your little cloud here, and you're going to fight off your first major boss in the game, which is like a giant troll golem. Best way I can describe it. Really easy boss. You simply have to shoot him in the head while avoiding the one little shot that he shoots out at a time. Really simple, really easy, but a really cool looking boss fight at the same time. Now when you finish him off, you've officially rescued the Earth Realm here, and all of the gnomes have their spirits back, and of course they're back to normal. And it's a sweet little scene. It actually says that you can visit them again anytime you close your eyes to go to sleep. So you're like visiting them in the dream world to a degree. I don't know, there's something sweet about that. I don't know. I'm a softie at heart, and the gnomes of Merlin are getting to me a little bit. But I enjoyed the little cutscenes after every single realm here, just to sort of show you what you've rescued inside the game or who you've rescued inside the game. And it also allows for some of the continuity from the intro to happen after every single chapter and also in the game that way as well. Now, after you finish the first realm here, you move on to your second realm, and you have a nice little overworld map here. It shows you like which realms you're going to next. And the next room they're going to go to is the air realm. And this is going to be filled with all types of tornadoes and different air creatures and such as that. Now level 2-1 is going to start Merlin off outside the castle, journey along the castle walls here. Nice little thunder and lightning scene in the background, wind sort of blowing throughout. I mean, it's a good atmosphere for a castle medieval level. And as Merlin's journeying along here, he's going to come across these little towers for the castle, and he can go into the towers. It has like a different point of view, or like x-ray vision to a degree. And you can see inside the towers, Merlin's like climbing the ladders, and you can go outside the doors again, and you go back to the outside castle view. I mean, it's not like groundbreaking, but it's at least a little bit of a change of pace. And there are a lot of enemies you're going to encounter. You have like these giant beetles you're going to come across. You got these birds you're going to come across. You got these little tornadoes throughout the level as well. And honestly, the hardest part of this level is going to be the platforming jumps, because the jumping is very precise in this game, and the ability to do those precise jumps is not really well built into the controls itself. And so oftentimes you end up jumping like too far or too short, or the jumping seems like a little bit of a lag. It's not like too bad in this particular level, but it's just going to get worse and worse as the game goes. And this is where you're going to first notice the jumping, because you've been mostly grounded throughout the rest of the game, and you're going to start noticing the difficulty in the jumps in this level. Now in 2-2, it's going to be pretty much more of the same, except you're now on like top of the castle, and you're going to have pretty much the same enemies here, except for a giant cloud head that's going to come at you. Reminds me of something like you'd see in like the Ghostbusters cartoon from the 80s as well. And for the most part, it's a pretty easy level until you get to some of the more difficult jumps, just simply again because of that precision that it requires. Now the third part of the level here is going to have you soaring through the sky once again, taking out the same enemies that you've encountered throughout the air realm already. And for the first time though, I really get fully upgraded. I'm shooting like double shots super fast, and with the spread shot, and my Merlin's getting pretty darn powerful here. And when you go into the fourth part of the level, which is sort of a continuation of part 3, and so you go into the fourth part of the level, you're going to fight against the boss here, which is like a giant tornado, and it's a little bit hard to control your Merlin character. And I don't know if it's like the poor gameplay controls, or if it's simply like the wind blowing against you, because at no point in this game had there been like actual mechanics as far as like the wind or anything like that affecting Merlin. And so I sort of doubt that's part of the level, but at the same time, he's so hard to control in this level, I can't imagine it not being a built-in mechanic, because it doesn't appear anywhere else in the game. But the tornado, even though it's hard to control, is still a pretty darn easy boss. Definitely one of the more unique bosses in the game, but like I said, still pretty easy. And then you get a little cutscene here, once again going back to the fairy tale like landscape and the music, and it just simply says the air is happy to help the humans breathe again, and also draw pictures in the sky with the clouds. And I mean, what a sweet little way of looking how the air is inside the world here. Now after the air realm, you're going to move on into the human realm, and honestly the human realm is probably like my favorite inside the entire game here, just simply because it like captured the entire medieval castle aesthetic like so incredibly well. And yes, I know there were castles in the last level. However, this one's going to be like the invading the castle, like a fighting scene here, because you're going to go up against like zombie Vikings as you go, different like little wooden crates that are going to shoot little arrows out at you from behind that, or just simply arrows, you know, coming down from the sky on you. I mean, they really captured the medieval castle setting perfectly here. Reminds me a little bit of like a gargoyle setting, you know, and I talk about gargoyles a little bit on the channel in general, but really like in the Gargoyles cartoon, they do like flashback scenes, and it always felt like the color scheme for this, the atmosphere for this, and I really doubt that they borrowed it from the show. I just simply think they captured a very similar feel or atmosphere for this particular level. One of the best levels in the game. Now level 3-2 is going to continue on with the same aesthetic here, except you're going more like in a medieval torture setting, because like as you're going through it, you got like these little gears that will grind Merlin up, or you have like these little chimney sweepers that are going to come out and grind into the wall with little spikes around it. And I don't know, very much of a torture scene as you're going through here. But some of this stuff is really hard to get by as well, because like when you go to the part with the little saw blades inside the little tower here, you have to do like a little leap of faith to try to figure out where to jump from, where to jump to, and there's no way to like know that until you actually try to jump. And I don't really enjoy games that do mechanics like that, where you have like no idea how it's going to work out until you try it. And I don't know, it feels sort of cheap there. The spikes going into the wall themselves, that's pretty easy to avoid. But the game is continuing to mix it up a little bit here, and I like the variation of the new enemies, including the mini boss, which is going to be like a little ghost flying around the sky. And that really makes me glad I have the spread shot, because it allows me to shoot at an angle up at them. I don't have to get anywhere like remotely close to them. Makes that boss battle like incredibly easy for me. And you move on into level 3-3, which is going to be another riding on your little cloud level. Once again, not my favorite levels, and it just sort of continues on with the same idea here. Don't hit the top, don't hit the bottom. Journey throughout it and fight off the same enemies that have been throughout that particular realm. But when you get to the boss here, the boss is like one of the coolest looking bosses inside the entire game. Like they did a really fantastic job with all of the boss designs here. And this is going to be like an evil witch inside of her bed. And on the edge of the bedpost has like two little skulls, you know, decorative at the edge, which, I don't know, as a kid, I would have found terrifying. As an adult, I just find, you know, more intriguing than anything, because it's just very much of a haunted aesthetic here. And it also reminds me, like, when I was a kid, there was a video that I would rent from the local library, where it was a story of a witch who, like, had her entire fence outside of her house made up of, like, human bones and human skulls. And as a kid, man, it, like, terrified me, like, really got to me. And so some of that imagery like sticks with you as you grow older. And so when I came across this particular boss, like it definitely reminded me of that. And I don't know, just a cool looking boss inside the game. Not a difficult boss. Really, if you just simply, you know, continually scale up and down, you'll finish the boss off pretty quickly. But man, what a cool boss design. And they've just done a fantastic job throughout the entire game for that. And of course the cutscene here shows that the humans are very grateful for being set free from the dragon. Doesn't mention the evil witch inside of her bed at all, which is sort of odd. But inside the picture here you do have a little cat if you look closely, and so the game has included a cat picture, which automatically knocks it up a little bit on the oval scale here. Now you move on into the fourth realm, which is going to be the water realm, and this is definitely my least favorite realm inside the entire game. You basically fall from the sky, you fall into the water here, and you journey through the water avoiding little spiked balls, fighting off like mermaids, fighting off the same tornadoes that you had in the last two levels, but now they're underwater, so I guess it's like a tsunami to a degree. I'm not really sure. It seems like a odd repetition of an enemy here. And the water levels, like, I don't really like, you know, in general, water levels as a whole. But it's weird because, like, these don't have any water mechanics behind it. And so, like, when you jump, you expect to have, like, a little bit of a anti-gravity or low-gravity floating mechanic. And it's not there. It's just simply, like, the same mechanics or the same physics throughout the entire water. And it just throws you off being underwater and not having a floating mechanic. Because, like, every game I've ever played, underwater, floating mechanic, they go hand in hand. And so it's odd that they go in this particular direction. The boss for level 4-1 here, or little mini boss, is going to be another golem here, except he's green this time, and it may be like harkening back to the creature from the Black Lagoon. I don't know, but he's pretty easy. Same mechanics he's had throughout, you know, the earlier encounters. But that finishes off level 4-1, and you move on into 4-2. And now we're seeing more of the repetition of enemies, just simply reskinning them, or, you know, different colors. You have green gnomes now, as well as still like the little tornadoes. And also this particular level here has some of the worst jumps in like the entire game thus far. And so the precision of the jumps is very hard to get, very hard to time your jumps just perfectly, and you get very, very frustrated. This is really the only difficult part of this game, are these precise jumps that you have to make, and it's really not because they're you know, precise jumps, it's just simply because the controls are so poorly designed for these jumps. And of course the final boss for 4-2 is going to be like a little manta ray, so they mix that up a little bit. Not too difficult, but, you know, at least something new. And then you get to your little cloud level here, which makes even less sense to be riding a cloud down through the water, but you are going from top to bottom, so it's a little bit of variation for it. And when you get to the very bottom, that's when you're going to go against the boss battle here. It's going to be a giant fish, maybe? I'm not really sure what you're fighting against. It reminds me of the fishes from the game Guardian Legend for the regular Nintendo. And I'll put a little picture here so you can compare them yourself. Not a difficult boss, just like all the rest of them, but honestly, this is probably the worst boss inside the game, just simply because I don't really know like what I'm fighting against. It's just a weird looking boss, and compared to like the earlier ones, man, this is like definitely the worst one. And compared to the one that's coming up, this is definitely the worst one inside the game. And then when you finish it off here, you get a nice little cutscene once again. It has like a really weird statement here. It says something to the effect of like, water is the chemistry to help form life. And I know like water is part of every living thing out there, but it's like trying to say like all, you know, creatures and whatnot come from like water itself. I don't know. It's just like a really weird mythology they're trying to create here. I'm interested in it. I'd like to hear more about it, but it's just like they sort of threw it out there and they have no explanation behind it, which is just sort of odd. But anyway, you journey into the final realm here, which is going to be the fire realm. And the game is getting a little bit on the repetitive side at this point, as far as like, you know, the enemies that you're fighting off. They are starting to reskin the enemies a little bit. Simply have the same enemies, the same jumping mechanics or the same adventure mechanics, but at like every single level. And the game is getting a little bit on the stealth side. And level 5 is going to try to mix up some of that, but at the same time it's going to fall into many of the same traps as the last couple levels. But the first part of the fire realm, you're going to start off in this giant pile of green goo, which makes, once again, no sense, but it's cool enough looking. But you journey out, you got some new enemies, you got these little multicolored butterflies that come at you. You got some hothead enemies that you're going to try to take out as well. You also have probably the most impossible jumps in the entire game. It has to be timed like literally just perfect, and you're like blind jumps you have to go for as well. And man, the jumps are getting like really darn annoying in the game here. At least when you finally get to the close of this particular level, there's a little door you have to get through. You have to go through and find these 4 wicks that you have to light in order to get the door to open. And so they are trying to add like at least one new mechanic inside the game, which is somewhat of a adventure mechanic to a degree. It's a short adventure, but it's still an adventure. And so they are trying to mix it up like that a little bit, but still, like the game is feeling very samey at this point. And that trend does continue on into 5-2 here. As you're journeying through, you do have a fire golem, which is just simply a reskin of all the other golems throughout the game. You have these little ladders that you climb up, these little cat statues that are shooting fire out. Very similar to how like the little spiked rods were coming out in the castle level earlier. The fire heads are back, and when you get to the close of the level here, there's a door. You can't get by the door until you journey off your beaten path here and actually find a gargoyle statue that you have to destroy. And when you destroy that, the door is going to open up. And so they are finally adding in, you know, some new mechanics as far as like open up different pathways, but they're very simple, and they really only put them in these last 2 levels. And it's something that they could have done throughout the entire game that would have added a little bit more to the gameplay experience. But since they didn't, the game gets a little bit on, like I said, the samey side. As you get to the third part of the fire realm, which is going to be once again on your little cloud here, journeying through a cave, and it's probably the most difficult of all the cloud levels, which makes sense. It's the last level in the game. And you get to the final boss here, who's going to be the dragon that awakened, you know, after 1,000 years in the intro. And when you fight him, there's a great looking boss here. I mean, the dragon looks ferocious. He looks neon. I mean, he looks just a wonderful looking dragon, and I just love the design behind him. And as you're fighting him here, you basically have to hop onto his little paws or his feet, and you simply have to jump from one foot to the other. And when you jump, you shoot straight up, and you try to shoot his head from down below him. And of course, he's going to lift the paws up, and he can make you fall into the lava, or he can shoot fire down, try to destroy you. He's definitely the hardest boss inside the entire game. I'm not going to say he's like super difficult, but he's definitely way harder than any of the earlier ones that you're going to encounter. But a really satisfying end to the game here. And when you kill him off, you get a great cutscene of the dragon, you know, passing away. And man, it's just such a great animation. And you have a little cutscene at the close where everyone says thank you for rescuing them, taking the dragon out, but he's probably not dead forever. You know, he awakened after 1,000 years last time, so he's probably going to come back eventually. And if you want to like kill him completely, you got to play Pro Mode, which is a new mode that you can go through here. And I didn't go through Pro Mode since the credits begin to roll after that. And at this point, the game is considered finished. And I really wouldn't mind going through Pro Mode, but you know, the point of the series here is to finish every game. And when the credits roll, we finish the game. And so Merlin is officially finished here. But overall, Merlin was a pretty unique little experience. The graphics in the game were definitely really well done. The cutscenes in the game were really well done. They had a great music throughout, a great charm throughout. You know, a good enemy variety, at least for the first half of the game. It's a shame they began repeating so much for the second half of the game as you went. They could have really done more as far as like the mechanics like they introduced in the last level there, where you're unlocking doors by solving puzzles or, you know, lighting certain things or destroying certain statues in a level. They could add like a key mechanic in the earlier parts, like get through different parts of the castle. And they could have done a whole lot more to expand the game just a little bit. But on the surface, it's a very basic platformer. but it definitely has a charm behind it, and I can't help but say like I enjoyed Merlin as I was playing through it. The only drawback I would say for Merlin is definitely going to be the jumping mechanics, and the jumping is, there's no other way to say it. The jumping is atrocious in the game. It's very difficult to get the precision right as you're jumping through these blind jumps in many occasions, and there's so many occasions like where you don't even know like where you're jumping to, and the only way you're going to figure it out is jumping off on the ledge here, dying, and then trying again the second time in order to get the jump correct. And I don't really enjoy when games do that. And if they could have fixed that one aspect of the game, this game would be a really fun, short, very short, it's like less than an hour long, platforming game. It has really cool mechanics as far as like, different weapon system, different upgrade system, like how many enemies you kill in a row. I mean, there's some cool stuff in the game. It's a shame it was brought down so much by the jumping mechanics, which really does take a pretty big step back. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give Merlin, I'm going to go for 6. I think the jumping mechanics really do knock it down quite a bit, and I think some of the repetition, knocks it down toward the end. But as far as like just simply sitting down, having fun on a platforming game, I'd say a 6 is probably about right. If you don't enjoy fantasy elements, it might knock it down like a 5. But for me, I like fantasy elements. I like Merlin. And so I think a 6 is probably where I'm going to put the game. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above. And as always, go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.